Hello and welcome. This is Michelle with PaperStampInk. Thanks for stopping by today, where I'm going to show you the next project in my craft fair series of tutorials. And I am going to be doing these Notepad wallets and showing you how I made these with pieces left over from this chunky notepad project, which I show you in a previous video, and I will link that below. If you like to get inspiration, tips, and techniques, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, ring the bell, and you'll get notifications of future projects. So we did the outside and inside of this pad with one part of a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And we're going to have another piece of paper left over that is 5 inches by 12, and I have cut that down to 5 inches by 9.5. Okay, that's going to give us this scrap of paper, and I showed these on that previous video as well. That's going to give us this little scrap of paper that is 2 inches by, or 2.5 inches by 5 inches. And I think those are great for making cards. I use that quite a bit to put a band across my cards, so I'm not fine with that extra piece of scrap. But I'm going to show you how to use up the one last scrap that we have left over from this tutorial. So this little notepad wallet is very simple. This is going to be one of my lower priced items at my craft fair. Now, I did get this tutorial the same as the chunky notepads from Lyric Lover, but I changed it up a bit. I wanted to do a different kind of closure. She had a belly band on there, and personally, I love belly bands, but the practicality of taking them off and putting them back on every time I want to write a note just frustrates me. So that's me personally, but I think they look really cute, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And for me, I thought an elastic closure would be best. So I did that and just put a little tassel on there to decorate it up instead of a sentiment or an image on the belly band. But you could close these with Velcro too if you'd like, or a snap or magnets. It's up to you. We're just going to go over the basic project here. So when we got done with those chunky notepads, we had 2 of those pieces left. We used 3 that were stacked together. These come in a stack of 5. And here's an image of what those look like from the Dollar Tree if you're looking for them. And they're all adhered together at the top from the Dollar Tree. We took it apart. We left 3 to use on the chunky notepad, and then that left us with 2 of these. Now, one of them has the chipboard already. One of them does not. I already went ahead and jumped ahead of myself here, so I'm going to go back, and I already put a backing on this, but I want to make sure I show you guys that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually rip this chipboard off of this one, and we will go through this together. So all I'm doing is I'm going to put 3 pieces of tear and tape adhesive across the top part of this pad here. And then I'm going to adhere it to a piece of cardstock. Now you could use whatever you have around. I had a piece of scrap Whisper White, so I've cut this to the same exact dimensions as my notepad, 3.5 by 5 inches. If you have not used this tear and tape, I love this stuff. It's so easy to tear it apart, and you don't have to be cutting everything. And then I'm going to use my take your pick tool to get under there and pull up that adhesive. I am being careful to hold this down so that I don't inadvertently pull up that back piece of the paper pad until we get that all adhered down. So I'm just going to center this on there and get this backing on to that notepad. And then I'm going to bring in some clear tape, and I'm just going to eyeball that. I want it to be, let's not have any hairs in there. I want it to be the length or longer of my notepad, and I am going to come just across the top here and line this up with the front of the pad. And this can be longer, that's okay. We're not going to worry about measuring it precisely to 3.5 inches, but I do want that front lined up well, and that's a little hard for me to see without getting my head right over it with the camera in the way. We're going to wrap this around to the back, and I'm going to come in with my scissors and trim this extra little bit off there. Now we have a pad with a backing on it. I'm going to bring in our 5 by 9.5 piece of paper, and I love using the Stampin' Up! Grid paper. If you've got another mat with measurements, it's great for this kind of project. And we are not going to be scoring and making lots of detailed measurements. I'm just going to line this up at 3.5, and I know that's where I want this pad of paper to go. So I'm just going to bring this up here and give it a little crease so I know where that mark is. And bring in my crocodile here, and I already have this measured out, so make sure you use this guide. If you haven't used one of these crocodiles before, they're great for being able to get into further in than your standard hole punch will get into projects. So I'm going to put one hole right along that edge, and I'm using this small one, so I'm using the 1/8 inch hole. I'm going to put about the middle of this piece of paper. So again, I'm just eyeballing on this, and then I'm going to put another one about halfway between there and the top, and I'm going to go down and put another one about halfway between there and the bottom. All right, and if I didn't shift my paper, we should have those holes lined up nicely there for our side. Let's go ahead and put some more tear and tape on the back of this and get it adhered down to our designer series paper. I know it may be quite a while, it seems like, before Christmas and craft fair season, or some of you may be doing craft fairs all year round. I only do them in the fall, so typically my first one is late October, first part of November. I just find I can only get so many in and be able to produce projects with my full-time job as well. So I found that those are my most successful ones, and I focus on those. So a lot of my items focus on gift giving. So they're great if you also are just looking for some suggestions for gifts. So I'm going to take and just kind of use my fingers to guide that and fold this up here. So I've got a nice guide for where that paper pad is going to go. And I'm going to stick that right down there. I'm going to fold this over and fold this side over, and I'm just going to give them kind of some little finger creases. And this is an additional step you don't have to do, but I like to bring in round this corner. So I'm using our detailed trio punch, and I'm going to just round these corners off. I find it, one, adds a little bit of a decorative touch, and two, it keeps those points from getting bent. All right, now we've just got to add our elastic closure and our little tassel on. You could use tassels, you could use beads. I'll link to some items that you can find in the description below there for some suggestions. But if you've got stuff in your stash, kind of look through your stash, see what you have that would work. All right, I'm going to slide that on there to begin with. Then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go from the back. I'm going to put those two pieces through there. Don't know if I mentioned 15 inches is what I started with for a piece of elastic, and it's always better to guess a little bigger rather than a little small. So you can always go and trim it off, but if you start too short, it's really difficult. So I'm going to go back through these holes here, come back to my front again, and I'm going to feed those through. So I found some fun colored elastic that I had in my stash that I thought would be interesting with this, but you could use white like I did on the other project as well. Okay, this is not wanting to work with me here. There we go. Make room in that hole. I don't want too big of a hole, so it can be a little much going through that one small hole if you're trying to get too many pieces through at once. There we go. Got them through. I'm just gonna bring these through and tie a double knot in the end here. Let's see. I can't talk and tie knots very well at the same time. Gotta think. All right, I'm gonna pull that nice and tight. I don't want that slipping off. I'm gonna wait to trim that until I fiddle with this. So now I'm gonna just pull these other pieces of elastic back through here so that we've got a nice flat piece laying there on both sides. And let's give it a test and see. And it looks like I got that a little long, so we're just going to pull this up here. Like I said, better to go too long than too short. And I am going to come through here and I'm going to just add another knot there. Trim that off. Pull it taut again. Let's see. There we go. And now let's give this a try. There we go. That's my... All right, guys, bonus. I'm coming back in here. I forgot to share with you what I did with that extra piece of paper. Told you that scrap I was going to do something with. So I'm going to go ahead and round one corner off of that scrap piece. It was 3.5. I trimmed it down to 3¼ inches. And I am going to bring in some of my Tombow Mono Multi. And I am going to do 3 sides of this, making sure I don't put adhesive on that top side. And I'm going to make a little pocket there. I know if I've got these little bits and pieces of paper that I hold on to, sometimes I just don't get around to using them. So I'd rather add some value by adding a pocket onto this than to have that sitting in my scrap bin and not getting used. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thanks. Drop me a line in the comments, send me an email at paperstampink@gmail.com, or head on over to my website and there's the contact me button there. I hope you enjoyed this. Until we meet again, make sure you grab your paper, stamp, and ink and do something creative.